Greetings, fellow Slayers. Well, it's Buffyverse June 2022, and this month we're going to be looking at Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 2. So, let's get things started with the first episode of Season 2, When She Was Bad. Xander and Will are quizzing each other on film quotes on the outskirts of a cemetery. The pair comment on the quiet summer in Sunnydale since they buried the master in the graveyard, and Xander remarks that he is actually looking forward to school starting up again. A tender moment ensues when Xander playfully puts ice cream on Willow's nose, but just as it looks as if the two are going to kiss, a vampire appears behind Willow. Xander intervenes and is barely holding on when Buffy shows up. She does the vampire and then turns to her friends and asks, "Miss me?" She then informs her friends about spending the summer in Los Angeles with her father. They tell her about their summer and how this is the first vampire they've seen since the master was killed. They also tell her about how they buried the master's bones in consecrated earth, and Buffy feels uneasy. She's also in a hurry to see Giles, telling her she'll just wait until she returns to school. At home, her mother Joyce is a bit uneasy about Buffy's shopping spree. Her father Hank explains that Buffy seemed distant the whole summer, and they never really established a connection, hence him overcompensating by letting her shop. At school, Principal Snyder expresses disgust with students while talking to Giles, who spots Jenny slips away, and oblivious Snyder babbles on. Giles finds the gang, and Buffy tries to hide the fact that she's not really that happy to see him. It explains that although they have closed the Hellmouth, the mystical energy still attracts evil forces to the town. He asks Buffy to resume her training after school, but is unnerved at how eager she is to get started. Whilst practicing, Buffy has a vision of the master and begins wailing on a dummy. She declares that she is prepared for whatever comes next. At night in her bedroom, she dreams of being killed by the master. Angel appears in her window to warn her that the Anointed One is gathering forces. Buffy brushes him off. He tells her he missed her and leaves before her reply. The next day, the Scoobies run into Cordelia, who is oblivious to the idea of keeping Buffy's Slayer identity secret. Buffy heaps a harsh insult on Cordy that her friends find too good. Meanwhile, the Anointed One and a vampire named Absalom are forcing other vampires to dig up the master's bones barehanded through consecrated earth. At the Bronze, Xander and Willow wonder about Buffy's behavior. Willow tries to feign to recreate the ice cream moment, but Xander does not do what she had hoped, saying instead, "You got something on your nose." Buffy then arrives and mocks Angel. She begins a slow, sensual dance with Xander that bothers Angel, Willow, and even Xander himself. Buffy leaves Xander hanging mid-dance after asking if he'd like to thank him for resurrecting her. Outside, Cordelia confronts Buffy and tells her to get over her problems. As Buffy leaves, Cordy is kidnapped by two dark figures. They throw her into a basement with an unconscious Miss Calendar. Meanwhile, Buffy walks to the grave that holds the bones of the master and finds it dug up. At lunch the next day, Giles shares Xander and Willow's concerns about Buffy, who shows up to tell him about her discovery. Giles remembers her revivification rituals, and Buffy's angered that he never told her. Snyder shoos away the students and tells Giles he would like to expel Buffy, as he smells numerous bad things about her. Giles tells him to give her a chance, and Snyder thinks his faith in her is weird. That night, the Scoobies learn that a revivification ritual needs the blood of the closest person to the deceased. Buffy assumes that would be her, since she and the master killed each other. Suddenly, Cordelia's watch, wrapped around a large rock, sails through the library window. It includes a message calling Buffy to the Bronze or they'll kill Cordelia. Buffy leaves for the obvious trap alone, saying she cannot look out for them while slaying. Outside the Bronze, Buffy tries to pick a fight with Angel, who ignores her. Inside, they find just one vampire, trying to pass for Cordelia. Buffy realizes that the ruse wasn't a trap, but a distraction. At the same time, she also realizes that the foreign text actually said the ritual requires the blood of those physically nearest to the master when he died. In other words, Giles, Willow, Cordelia, and Miss Calendar. As everyone becomes aware that they're the ones in danger, several vampires emerge from the shadows. Buffy returns to the library to find a bloody Xander, who warns that if anything happens to Willow, he will kill Buffy. They go back to the Vampire of the Bronze, and Buffy tortures into a confession where the ritual will take place. Arriving at an abandoned factory, Buffy interrupts the ritual, staking all vampires involved as the Anointed One is whisked away, while Angel and Xander rescue the others. With the master skeleton laid over a table, Buffy utterly destroys it with a sledgehammer while her friends watch. She begins crying and Angel hugs her. The next day, Buffy talks to Giles about her fear of facing her friends again after treating them so badly and putting them in danger. He tells her she can hide from them forever, and assures that this was hardly the worst mistake she'll ever make. Buffy then reluctantly enters class, where Willow and Xander have saved her a seat. Together, they joke and make plans for the night. Meanwhile, at the factory, the Noitone gazes at the scene of destruction and declares, "I hate that girl." Alright. So anyway, let's take a look at some continuity surrounding this episode. This episode marks the start of the tradition in the show of all Buffy season premieres, beginning with a scene in a cemetery. The non-canon short story Avalon Rising identifies Shady Hill Cemetery as the location of the Master's bones. Principal Slander calls girls hormonal time bombs. In Blood Ties, Spike describes Dawn Summers the same way. Joyce says she hopes Buffy can make it through the school year without getting kicked out, as she had expressed in Welcome to the Hellmouth. Although, as Principal Slander smells expulsion about Buffy, this will turn out to be true in Becoming Part 2. This is the second and final real appearance of Buffy's father Hank Summers in the series. All subsequent appearances would be in the form of flashbacks, dreams, or hallucinations, until his solo return in Freaky Giles Day. Joyce and Hank make references to the shoes of Los Angeles while unpacking Buffy's bags. The LA shoes were also the subject of conversations between Cordelia and Buffy in Welcome to the Hellmouth. This marks the first appearance of the high school lounge room, which will make more appearances in the second and third seasons. Cordelia is reluctant to adopt into the Scooby Gang, though her participation will be lighter than other characters. Cordelia tells Buffy to get over it in response to Buffy's appalling behavior in this episode. Cordelia would use this line to Angel in the Angel episode, "I Fall to Pieces." This is the first attempt to raise a vampire from the dead during the series. The first time it actually happens is in the Angel episode San Juan in LA, when Wolfram and Hart bring back Darla. Buffy challenges Angel to fight and asks if he is interested in how it would be. Later in the season, they'll actually fight after he loses his soul. Buffy calls Angel an undead American. Angel actually originates from Ireland. Lila Morgan used the same term in reference to vampire in the Angel episode Benediction. Since the Master's death, the Order of Aurelius has left the sunken church and moved to the abandoned bric-a-brac factory, keeping the necessary layer until the episode Passion. Xander suggests that he, Will, and Buffy play miniature golf. 5 years later, when making plans for the next day, Xander will declare, "Mini golf is always the first thing that comes to mind." Willow says there is no golf course there. Eventually, Ted will take them to play miniature golf on a drive in Ted. And now let's take a look at some production notes. This season marks the first appearance of David Boreanaz in the opening credits. David Boreanaz played the Master in the dream sequence of this episode. Christoph Beck debuts in this episode, replacing Walter Murphy as the soundtrack composer. Xander makes a comment about Buffy's new shorter, blonder hair. This is because Sarah Michelle Gellar had restyled her hair for Scream 2, which filmed during the hiatus between seasons 1 and 2 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Tamara Braun, who portrays Tara, will also play a frenzied girl in Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. Interesting. And now finally, let's take a look at some pop culture references. When Willow and Xander play Cinema Quiz, they reference the films The Terminator, Planet of the Apes, Star Wars, and Witness. Jenny mentions having attended the Burning Man Festival over the summer, an annual event held since 1986. Cordelia calls Buffy, Will, and Xander the Three Musketeers, in reference to the titled trio of characters from the 1844 adventure novel by Alexandre Dumas, with multiple adaptations over the years. Xander suggests that a better insult would be being called the Three Stooges, a trio of slapstick comedy. Cordelia tells Buffy to get over her Joan Collins attitude, whose character Alexis Colby in the television show Dynasty was often regarded as vengeful and ruthless. I can definitely see that. So overall, it's the beginning of season 2. This episode is actually not that bad, and I do like how Buffy is a little bit distant, but hey, I think that kind of makes sense for a character regarding everything that happened last season, so yeah. So overall, I give When She Was Bad 4 vampire steaks out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in bed as we take a look at the next episode, Some Assembly Required. So, until then, here endeth the lesson.